Welcome to the home of 101 Faith TV. This is the place for stories of amazing faith overcoming impossible odds. I'm Larry Gent, and this is the message for May 29th, 2022 at Grace Heartwood United Methodist Church. It's Memorial Weekend at Grace, and today we honor those sacred memories. Our reading today is from the Wisdom of Ben Sirach, chapter 44. Let us now sing praises of great women and men, our ancestors in their generations. There were those who ruled in their kingdoms. They made a name for themselves by their strength. Others gave counsel because they were wise, while others spoke as prophets. Some led the people by their knowledge of the land. They were wise in their words of instruction. There were great musicians who wrote sweet melodies, and great poets who put verses in writing. All these were honored in their generations. They were the pride of their times. Some of them have left behind a name, so that others declare their praise. But of others, there is no memory. They have perished as though they had never lived. But these also were people of compassion. Their righteous deeds have not been forgotten. Their bodies are buried in peace, but their names live on generation after generation. The people declare their wisdom, and the congregation proclaims their praise. The Old Testament reading is from the book of Leviticus. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and tell them, in the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, you shall have a Sabbath, a memorial day of blowing the trumpets, a holy convocation. You shall do no regular work on that day, but you shall make an offering that passes through the fire. You shall make an offering unto the Lord. The gospel lesson is from Mark chapter 14. And Jesus said, Leave her alone. Why must you trouble her? She has done a good thing for me. For you have the poor with you always, and whenever you like, you may do good things for them, but you will not always have me. She has done what she could. She came to anoint my body before I am buried. Truly I say to you, wherever this gospel shall be preached throughout the world, this thing that she has done shall be spoken of as a memorial for her. Our nation was not quite 85 years old before we were engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all people are created equal, could long endure. The first shots were fired at Fort Sumter, South Carolina, which fell to Southern forces within 2 days without loss of life on either side. After that easy, bloodless victory, the Southern generals boasted that the war would be over soon and the troops would be home by Christmas time. They were wrong. The first organized land battle of the war took place 2 months later. For reasons not clear to science or religion, that battle was joined in the sleepy little village of Philippi, then in Northwest Virginia, now in West Virginia. The Union Army opened fire on a Confederate camp at dawn, and those experienced soldiers had failed to post a guard. So the Southern forces ran from the fight, some still wearing their bedclothes. The Northern forces called it a great victory and boasted that the war would be won quickly and easily. they were wrong. The war finally officially ended when Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in 1865. But the last battle of the war took place 2 months later in Texas. I guess it takes a while for Texans to stop fighting. The nation was left to pick up the pieces, but for some, the wounds would never heal. In those 4 dreadful years, the nation lost 2.5% of the population. Today, that would be equivalent to 7 million souls. Of that number, 2/3 died of disease rather than enemy fire. It seemed that nearly every family in America lost someone in that conflagration, leaving behind mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, sisters and brothers, to mourn the loss. The cries of a grieving mother are heartbreaking and pitiful, but they are not powerless. All over the nation, but especially in the South, there was a long tradition of decorating graves of loved ones as soon as the spring flowers began to bloom. And by May of 1866, less than a year after the last shots were fired, Decoration Day became Memorial Day. Today there are over 24 towns that claim they were the first to honor those who had fallen. All over the nation, those left behind came out to honor the fallen. But they did not honor only their own. In the graveyards and cemeteries, North mingled with South. Officers fell beside enlisted men. Black and white were united by the pall of death. So the survivors, mostly the women, decorated all of the graves, every single one. They honored the memory of all who had fallen, for memories are not blue or gray, black or white. Memories are sacred. And in 1866, those precious memories were holy. For many, memories were all they had left. So they placed those flowers of memory, and those flowers became the seeds of healing. It took 100 years for our nation to make Memorial Day official. Perhaps that's because we kept having more to grieve. There was the Great War, the war to end all wars. Now we call it the First World War. That conflict was still raw in the memory of wives and daughters when the Second War began. Then came Korea and Vietnam, the Cold War, 9/11, the Gulf War. Like the Great War, it would soon be repeated. There were wars in Libya and Afghanistan, so fast and furious that they all seemed to blur together. And now there are many who say America is at war with herself, and the very fabric of our nation is strained as it was in 1861. In times like these, I do not place my hope in horses or chariots, princes or politicians or pundits. I put my hope in Memorial Day, in the devotion of those who vow to never forget, especially the wives and the daughters. They are the ones who gather the flowers of honor. They're the ones who bring the decorations of dignity and respect. They're the ones who cannot remember which uniform the departed was wearing or which bugle call they answered. They're the ones who remember all who have fallen, saying prayers of peace and laying wreaths of healing. They don't forget any of those souls. Their memories are more powerful than any conflict on earth. For some, the gift of flowers is not permanent enough. Monuments of stone and glass and steel dot the landscape. There are World War I monuments in Washington and Kansas City, D-Day monuments and World War II monuments as well. The Korean War Memorial has 19 soldiers of stainless steel, so that those who died in the forgotten war might never be forgotten. The Vietnam Monument is solid granite with over 58,000 unforgettable names etched into the black stone. Plans are underway to build a monument for Desert Storm and Desert Shield as well. But there's a new monument in Washington I want to tell you about. It opened in 2020 at the height of the pandemic, so there was very little fanfare. Not many people know it is there. And the folks who built it are fine with that. It's the memorial to Native American veterans. From the Revolutionary War forward, a greater percentage of Native people have volunteered to serve in harm's way than any other people of this great land. We often think of Civil War history written in black and white, but the lives of the first people of this land were also part of that epic struggle. Civil War is black and white and red and Asian, as have been all the wars of America. Outsiders have explained that Indians love the glory of war, but anyone who thinks war is glorious has never served there. They say it's part of the warrior culture, but war is not glorified among these people. In fact, in some tribal communities, soldiers who have taken enemy lives are forbidden to take part in tribal dances or ceremonies. Yet Indian women and men from these communities still volunteer to serve in times of war. They don't do it for glory or bloodlust. They do it because of their memory. They remember that this land holds the bones of their ancestors. This land remembers the sacrifice of their loved ones, so they stand in the gap to honor that memory. They stand for those who stood up for them, and they remember the ancestors who gave life itself. Today we honor those who stood and fell for this land where we dwell, this great land, this land we love. Some of them rest on the doorstep of our chapel at Grace. We cannot begin to express our gratitude for their sacrifice. But they were not the only ones who served. They could not have stepped forward without the wives and mothers, fathers and sons, brothers and sisters who gave them the strength to stand. For everyone whose name is carved in stone, there were at least 100 others who lifted them up, carried them along, and wept for them when they fell. They also served this land we love. So today we honor soldiers of the cross, those who labored long and hard in the vineyard, who gave the sweat of their brows and the labor of their hearts to build this church, this sanctuary, this monument of faith and peace, hope and healing, where we now stand today. Today we honor their faith and sacrifice, and we whisper together, "Well done, good and faithful servants. Well done." Oh, just one more word about that last memorial I mentioned, the Native American Veterans Memorial. It was not meant to glorify battle or praise the warrior culture. It was built to welcome all souls to come from the four corners of this land from the four winds and pray for the healing of the land, I think it could rightly be called a sanctuary. And that is why we gather in our sanctuary today, to honor those who stood for this land, to remember those who have fallen, and those whose tears fell for them like rain, for there is healing in those memories. As we pray for the day that the last tears shall fall, we honor God's call to set aside a memorial day and bless an offering passed through the fire, a day to celebrate sacred memories and pray for the healing of God's land.